The old school stood at the edge of town, hidden behind thick, overgrown trees and crumbling stone walls. The windows were shattered, the paint was peeling off the walls, and the roof sagged under the weight of years of neglect. No one went near it, and no one talked about it. It was as if the school had never existed at all, but everyone knew it was there, and everyone knew the stories. The school had been abandoned for decades, ever since that one day no one liked to speak about. It wasn't just an ordinary school closing, something terrible had happened inside. Something that left the town in silence. But over time, as people left and new ones moved in, the story faded into whispers. The town moved on, but the school remained. Brandon and Jack had heard the rumors all their lives. As kids, they had dared each other to get close, but neither ever had the nerve. Now, as young men, they thought it was time to put the old story to rest. They weren't superstitious and they didn't believe in ghosts. They wanted to prove that the old school was just that, an old, forgotten building with no secrets. One autumn evening, they made their way to the edge of town, flashlights in hand. The air was cold and the sky was overcast, casting everything in a dull gray light. The road leading to the school was little more than a dirt path now, barely visible under the creeping weeds. As they walked, the trees seemed to close in around them, and the quiet of the town was replaced by the eerie rustle of leaves and the occasional snap of a branch underfoot. "There it is," Jack said, pointing ahead. The building loomed out of the trees, even more dilapidated than they had imagined. The front doors were hanging off their hinges, and the courtyard was filled with debris. But what struck them the most was the silence. It wasn't the quiet of an empty building. It was something deeper, almost like the air itself was holding its breath. "You still sure about this?" Brandon asked, his voice quieter than usual. Jack hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yeah, let's just get this over with." They pushed the doors open, the creak echoing through the empty hallways. Inside, the smell of mold and rot hit them immediately. The walls were covered in grime, and the floor was littered with broken furniture and old textbooks, their pages yellowed with age. As they ventured deeper into the school, the temperature seemed to drop. Their flashlights flickered as they moved from room to room, finding nothing but the remnants of a place long forgotten. But something didn't feel right. It was more than just the abandoned building. It was the sense that they weren't alone. "I swear I just heard something," Brandon whispered, stopping in his tracks. Jack turned around, shining his light down the hallway. "It's just the wind. This place is falling apart." But Brandon wasn't convinced. The sound he heard wasn't the wind. It was something else, something faint, like the distant echo of footsteps. He didn't say anything more, though. He didn't want to seem paranoid. They made their way to the second floor, where the classrooms were. Most of the doors were locked or jammed shut, but one at the end of the hallway was slightly ajar. Jack pushed it open and they stepped inside. The room was just like the others. Desks overturned, papers scattered across the floor. But there was something off about this one. The air felt heavier and the smell was worse. As they looked around, Brandon's flashlight landed on the blackboard at the front of the room. His breath caught in his throat. There, written in chalk, was a message: "We never left." Jack saw it too, and for the first time his confidence wavered. That's not possible. No one's been here in years. Brandon's heart was racing now. "We need to get out of here." Just as they turned to leave, they heard it. A faint, eerie sound. It wasn't footsteps this time. It was the sound of children laughing. They froze, their flashlights flickering. The sound grew louder, closer, until it filled the room. But there was no one there. Panicking, they rushed out of the room and down the stairs, but the laughter followed them, echoing through the halls. The doors they had come through slammed shut in front of them, trapping them inside. "Jack, what's happening?" Brandon shouted, yanking at the door, but it wouldn't budge. "I don't know." Jack's voice was shaky now. "This wasn't supposed to." Suddenly the lights went out completely. They were plunged into darkness, the laughter now deafening. And then, just as quickly as it had started, everything went silent again. The door creaked open on its own, and the two of them stumbled out into the cold night air, gasping for breath. They didn't stop running until they were back in town, the school far behind them. They never spoke about what happened that night, and just like everyone else in the town, they never went near the abandoned school again. But the message on the blackboard stayed with them: "We never left."